Chapter 24, Summary of 2012 to 2019, Thorbjoern, May 2020. One thing I fully believed was true was that during the 3 years of legal turmoil from 2010 to 2012, Tin Man and Scarecrow's relationship probably thrived because they shared a common enemy, me. Tin Man needed someone to battle with, to deflect his anger onto. But I was no longer his enemy per se since all the legal stuff ended. So I suspected the strife and drama Tin Man craved got redirected into their marriage. The following January, in 2013, Tin Man and Scarecrow's daughter was born. Tin Man did fulfill his 6 months consecutively in Pennsylvania and started taking Thaddeus to Virginia for overnight stays during the summer of 2013 when Thaddeus was 3 years old. I was comforted by the fact the boys were together, so even though it was a new location for Thaddeus, he had his big brother with him the whole time. Eventually, the weekend visits during the school year turned into long holiday visits over the summer and over Christmas. It took me 2 years to officially pay off all my attorneys, having spent over $30,000 in legal fees. The relationship that I was in that started in 2012 ended spring of 2014, which was sad for all. I was grateful, though, to him because of his kindness and what he had taught me. The relationship had been such a contrast to the dysfunctional marriage I'd had with Tin Man and gave me a better framework of what it felt like to be in a partnership. During the spring of 2014, I purchased my first home with the support of my family. My parents helped me with the down payment, and my grandmother co-signed the house with me. It was my desire to create stability, no more moving. So I was back to being a single parent of my 2 boys. Thorbjoern was 7 and Thaddeus was almost 4. That following January, our lives changed yet again when Thaddeus at 4.5 was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It was Wednesday, January 7th, 2015, when I took Thaddeus to the doctors. Thaddeus' symptoms had included constant need to urinate as well as drinking water heavily. I thought he might have a UTI, a urinary tract infection, but I was gravely mistaken when our primary doctor told me to take Thaddeus to the emergency room. It was a dramatic diagnosis, and we had to undergo training on how to manage his blood sugar. Tin Man came up and stayed with us at the hospital. Type 1 diabetes runs in his family. He'd grown up with a type 1 diabetic mother and was familiar with the disease. It was literally the first time Thaddeus saw him and I sitting down in the same room together. Moving forward, Thaddeus' blood needed to be tested every few hours, totaling 6 times per day. Anytime Thaddeus had carbohydrates, he would need injections of fast-acting medicine called Humalog, as well as slow-acting insulin once a day called Lantus. Thaddeus was resilient, even at 4.5 years old. Years later, in 2018, I worked with a homeopathic doctor in California who, after hours of assessing Thaddeus' history and symptoms, expressed to me that Thaddeus' diabetes was likely a result of the severing relationship between father and son. This was a 2-part experience. One, when Tin Man had asked me to take the paternity test and denied that Thaddeus was his. Energetically, Tin Man had severed their relationship. Second, the romantic relationship I had been in from 2012 to 2014, while he had played a wonderful fatherly role in Thaddeus' life. But when our relationship ended, it affected both children, especially Thaddeus. I also think about the amount of stress I had been under while carrying him. He was born perfect, but nevertheless, the stress I had been under had been extreme. And likely that had stressed out his immune system. That's my personal opinion.
Make me love Dada.
You want to talk to God, so God will help you love Dada, right?
Yeah, wait.
Right. Okay. Bjorn, do you love Dada?
Yeah.
Okay. Thaddeus, do you love Dada a little bit?
Yeah.
You love it, and you want God to help you love Dada a whole lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine is just the galaxy.
You love him that much?
Yeah.
You love him that much?
It's this much, like an M.
You love him that much? And you
Yeah.
want to love him, you want to learn how to love him more?
Like this.
Okay.
Only in this morning, though. That's why only in the morning.
Only in the morning? How come not during the day?
In the day. Outside is saying in the morning. I think the morning is the whole day. That's what I think.
Oh, like tomorrow morning. Starting tomorrow morning, you
Yes.
want to love him?
Just that night he just complains. That doesn't matter. It's just nighttime. We'll fall asleep.
I'm so proud of you, Thaddeus. Thaddeus, that was so mature. That was so well said. Yes.
You're liking it so
Okay.
much that you're making me want to hug him, Mom. Will you?
Thaddeus?
Yeah, you're making. Are you liking Dada, Mom?
Or, you know what?
Are you liking Dada, Mom? I mean, Thaddeus? Are you liking Dada a lot now?
Okay, I'm going to pause it.
I guess.
And you know, we think babies and young children don't realize what is happening around them, but they are way more aware than we give them credit for. So, with Thaddeus' diagnosis, our lives were changed forever. Type 1 diabetes is no joke. That feeling I had when I left Tin Man in 2010, that determination to create a peaceful life before Thaddeus was born, was very similar to the feeling I had after his diagnosis. The fierce determination to keep this child alive. It put me back in that survival mode because there are dangers with diabetes, essentially overdosing on insulin. If Thaddeus's sugars dropped too low, it could potentially put him in a coma or even kill him. This is why it became crucial for me to also monitor his blood sugars in the middle of the night. Concerning health insurance, it had been part of our court order that Tin Man provide medical insurance for the boys. Scarecrow, who worked full-time, was the one who ended up providing the insurance for her family and the boys. So if I had any insurance questions, I communicated with her. In fact, we were in touch for scheduling summer and Christmas visitations, as well as in regard to Thaddeus's maintenance of his blood sugars during visitation time. We communicated by email or via text message, always having a record of our communications. I rarely communicated with Tin Man. In 2018, through trial and error while keeping a food log, I discovered that by putting Thaddeus on a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, it cut his medicine in half. This was significant and played a huge role in meal planning. Scarecrow seemed supportive of the dietary changes and was always eager to buy healthy food for Thaddeus, which I greatly appreciated. I also sent down a food box along with supplements during their visits. For years, for the most part, there were no issues between Scarecrow, Tin Man, and myself, or rather, all the issues were minor. For example, one summer the boys returned home, and the boys informed me that Scarecrow had thrown away all the supplements. Why? That was money down the drain. She could have respectfully sent them back. Also, the boys told me that Thaddeus was allowed to eat gluten when he was there. I sighed. These are not things I could control, so I let it go. During those years, 2013 to 2019, I didn't necessarily feel that Scarecrow and I were besties, but he used to joke that we were like sister wives because we were raising children together. Her daughter was my boy's sister. There was no reason why we couldn't all get along for the sake of the children. I always appreciated that Scarecrow seemed to prioritize the children's needs, so I felt they were taken care of during visitation time. Fast forward to August 2019, when I was served paperwork for the emergency hearing. I want to point out, it did not have to be like this, meaning the legal drama was so unnecessary. The disharmony was so unnecessary. We'd had a relatively peaceful period of 7 years. There was no reason for that not to continue. We'd even taken a few family group photos over the years. The 2019 legal battle took 2 months, and the literal outcome was to file the original 2012 Pennsylvania child custody order in New Jersey. A lot of unnecessary drama, which was incredibly expensive, costing us $8,500 in legal fees. Tin Min's argument was based on lies and manipulation, and thankfully the judge saw right through this. Now, I could have allowed Thorbjoern to move in with Timian and Scarecrow that fall in 2019. Jake and I fully believe Thorbjoern had gone down to Virginia that summer in August after the month of family counseling to whine and complain about us, which likely led to why Timian took me back to court. But I wasn't going to let Thorbjoern go based on a bunch of lies, nor did I want Timian to raise him. But what I learned in raising an ODD child, it is not always the parent's fault. The child or teenager has to make good choices, and Thorbjoern fought us on everything. From my journal, Tuesday, May 28th, 2019. We'd had Memorial Day weekend, and Jake and I had been around the kids fighting for 3 days. Thor wouldn't let up. We'd gone to pick strawberries the day before, and it didn't matter what we said or did. Thor was running his mouth. We were so tired of hearing it and being around it. At this point, discussing Thorbjorn's behavior had dominated Jake and my conversations. We had talked about what to do and still didn't have any answers. All of Thor's electronics had already been taken away, and his behavior was still not improving. I was at my wit's end, so I went to the police station to ask for advice. The officer who spoke with me gave me a card for the crisis center. I called that afternoon, and 2 social workers were at our house that night, interviewing everyone in the family. Then we got approved for 6 weeks of in-home family therapy covered by the state. This is when DYFS, New Jersey's Child Protective Services, were involved. They totally saw through Thorbjorn's behavior. So when Timian tried accusing my husband and I of abusing the children in court in 2019, the DYFS documents proved otherwise. The following spring in 2020 was another significant moment in time. With the school shutdowns due to the pandemic, Thorbjoern was avoiding schoolwork and everything came ahead. His diagnosis of ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, was in full effect. I was in touch with a social worker at the middle school, Mr. Peter Goldborough, who worked with Thor on behavioral issues. Thor was also seeing Miss Vanessa, the therapist who'd originally diagnosed him with ODD last fall in 2019. I also had my own teacher who I consulted regularly. At the time, I was teaching 5 days a week in Pennsylvania, so I could not oversee his homework. Thus, I hired Dr. Matt, a teacher who worked virtually with Thorbjoern. His main goal was to make sure Thorbjoern completed all his academic tasks. Not surprising, Thorbjoern continued to lie about completing homework he had not. He refused to change his behavior whether I offered a consequence or an incentive. The worst part was Thorbjorn's behavior started to be directed toward his younger brother. He was starting to take his frustrations out on Thaddeus. The disharmony at home due to Thorbjorn's atrocious behavior was very unfortunate. I started to feel like running away because it didn't matter what I did. Thorbjorn's behavior wasn't changing. Talk about feeling powerless. One evening in May 2020, I checked Thorbjorn's phone. He'd written a text message to Scarecrow complaining about me. Me! The mom that was constantly having conversations about him, ways to support him, ways to get him to behave. My marriage was consumed with talk about Thor. My therapy sessions were consumed with conversations concerning Thor. I was paying $500 a month to Dr. Matt to make sure Thorbjoern completed his homework. I was teaching him violin and piano, practicing with him daily. Every evening, I was reading Harry Potter. We are on book 7, having been reading the Harry Potter series for years. I was doing everything in my power to give him the best childhood I could. And he was complaining about me to Scarecrow? Ooh, I was livid. That night, while putting the boys to bed, I asked Thor about the text messages to Scarecrow. He showed absolutely no remorse. No, I'm sorry, Mom. He was not embarrassed. He was not shameful. Nothing. In fact, he felt justified. I was appalled. Here I'd been spending so much time and energy trying to be the best mom I knew how to be for Thor, and he was texting Scarecrow complaining about me? To say I was shocked would not accurately describe my feelings. I was astounded. I was flabbergasted. And that night, when he looked at me with indignant eyes, acting like he was justified to complain about me, because why? Because I had expectations? Because everyone in this household was required to do their jobs? His job being his schoolwork? I felt my guides and angels' presence that night as if they showed up in physical 3D bodies. I felt them around me. And the message I received was, let him go, let him go. And at that moment, I decided that I would allow him to move in with Tin Man. Thorbjoern was 13 and a half. I'd spent his whole life doing my best to make sure he didn't turn into his father. And it seemed I had lost the battle. Nature had won over nurture. I put the boys to bed and I crawled into my bed, essentially in fetal position, and sobbed my heart out. At one point, Jake came in and asked me,
"What is wrong?"
I could barely answer him. I told him, I'll tell you tomorrow, and just allowed the sorrow to wash over me. The next day at the island, while feeding the boys breakfast, I informed them
Yay.
I've made a decision. I'm allowing Thorbjoern to move in with Tin Man. Thor immediately grabbed his phone and called his dad. Thaddeus looked at me.
Thor's moving in with Dad?
Yeah, I answered. Are you going to be okay with that?
I guess.
He said, and returned to eating his Nutella sandwich on gluten. In court in 2023, Tin Man would try to prove that we had,
Kicked Thorbjoern out of their house.
oh, how he liked to spin the truth.